Live from the Partners Neighborhood Bar and Grill in beautiful downtown Huntsville, Alabama.
What time is it?
What time is it?
What time is it?
What time is it? What time is it?
It's tea time with Tierra, darling, where we are spilling the tea.
Alrighty, so we're before the show, and I'm just really nervous to be with this big superstar Tierra. I just hope this goes so well. I hope I looked okay and everything like that. I mean, I did wear my Calvin Klein, so I hope that'll help out. Any, not that I'm name dropping or anything like that, but you know, I've put everything out I can think of to just do this well. So, wishing me the best of luck.
Oh, Lord have mercy, what have I got myself into? This guy has called me wanting to interview me and do a talk show, and here we are. Guess everything's alright, it doesn't matter, so there you go.
Alrighty, well, hello everybody. This is Tea Time with Tierra. So I hope everybody's having a good day. Tierra, how are you doing today?
I'm good, how are you doing?
I'm really good, thank you. Let's talk a little bit about how we met and how we got this started. So I have a podcast and another show, and I'm doing a series on transformations, and the very first person I thought of was Tierra Stone. So I called you up, and what did you say?
I said yes. He asked me to do a podcast interview talking about transformations, and of all people that I know personally, I know myself better, so I know I've been through a huge transformation just in the past year. So I was honored and so blessed to have you ask me to do that. So thank you.
And so it's really kind of interesting because I've been through like a kind of a spiritual journey this past year, and I kind of told you that we're going to get a little woohoo. The angels had told me that I was supposed to say to you, "Tea Time with Tierra," and I was like, okay, I will say it to her. So I told you we got to talk at the end of the show. So I said to you, "Tea Time with Tierra," and what did you say?
Well, actually, about 2 or 3 years ago, I was told we need to do Tea Time with Tierra at the Vieux Carré before it closed. So it didn't proceed to go into anything. So when he asked me, it was almost like a confirmation that it needed to be done. So it was pretty awesome,
Yeah, and that is so cool. And so it kind of was synchronistic because you had just told me that week you were going to hang your heels up, that you had decided you were no longer going to MC and be parts of the show. Is that right?
That's correct. And when one door closes, another one opens. So, yes.
And we do want to say to everybody, you know, we're doing this with the equipment we have, so if it looks a little kludgy or whatever, you know, all is well. So, and we have a slight audience today. How's our audience doing today? All right. I don't know if y'all could hear it because we have this little microphone that picks up some things and that type of thing. But we're gonna have all kinds of little segments and things we're gonna do today, and we have a guest coming in. So, do you want to talk a little bit about your journey or your path that you've been on?
Sure. Well, my journey, this new journey I started was it was kind of a pre-journey confirmation that I needed to start a new journey back before November of last year. I had decided that I needed something new, something that was bringing positive, something that was bringing light into this darkness. And I really have always been a light person, always shedding light when there's darkness. But I needed something bigger and better. So when the Vieux Carré closed, I decided that I needed to be more spiritual. I needed to embark on a new journey, and I needed to include the man that brought me into this world. So I decided that I was going to go to church. So I attended the Spirit of the Cross on November, the very first Sunday in November. And since then, I can tell you that my life has changed, the people around me has changed, and everything about me has changed. Even the way I think has changed. So I'm so thankful and so honored and blessed.
That's awesome. I think that's going to be the interesting thing about this show, you know, because it's a whole new paradigm shift of, you know, I'm gay, and, you know, well, how would you describe yourself?
I'm a lady.
All right, cool. It's all. I just didn't know because I'm just saying in the.
I'm not ashamed. I was born male. I'm transitioning to becoming a woman, so I'm transgendered. So the best term would be transsexual, meaning transitioning into the next sex. So.
The only reason I bring that up is just in the South. You know, we're deep in the South, in Baptist country. It's kind of unusual because most of those people would 20 years ago we'd probably burned at the cross type of thing, and here you are going to Spirit of the Cross. So it's interesting that we're doing this right here, And we've come from that background because I know when I was, a teenager, it was still in the psychological books as being a disease, being gay and that type of thing. So now we're kind of shifting it around, and we're showing that you can be, of an alternate persuasion, or however you'd want to put it, and be spiritual at the same time.
Yes, and there's been a shift in our energy lately. I think that things are changing for the better, but I still believe that as a whole community, we're still so undereducated just in general about spirituality, about just about everything, including transgender, what homosexuality is, bisexual, transgender. The whole world needs to know, and I think the more you know, the more power you have.
And I think that's interesting, as we had talked a little bit before the show, and you said you didn't know what a light worker is, but then you used the word light, so you are a light worker, Tierra.
I just didn't really know the terminology that you used, but I always had a special light. I've been told that since I was little, so.
And I never did tell you how gorgeous you look today. Look how gorgeous. Doesn't she look gorgeous today? I am very impressed.
Oh, thank you. You look mighty handsome yourself.
It's Calvin Klein. What can I say?
We're not labels or anything.
Oops. I wasn't supposed to do that, was I?
Oh, no, it's great. Yeah, so is everybody doing okay? Everybody comfortable out there? Cool.
Okay, everybody, so we're back. This is Craft Time with Tierra time. Are you excited?
I'm excited.
Is the crowd excited? All right, so we have a couple of beautiful, these are teacups, I'm sure, even though they look a little bit like coffee cups, they're teacups. So we're going to just kind of decorate those. So I want you, what's your favorite color?
My favorite color is hot pink. Hot pink is my favorite color.
Here, I kept the microphone to myself instead of giving it to her so she could talk. That's funny. So I'm just going to kind of put this down. You're going to see us. You're going to be enthralled as you watch us make these into beautiful works of art, right?
And these mugs will be valuable.
Oh, they will be able. Once we get our website up, they will be available for purchase. By the way.
Exactly.
I'm thinking like maybe $29.95 with free shipping, or is that too cheap?
I think $129.95 is better. This is like the view, you know.
I like the way you talk, and we might have some different contests for our audience where they might have the chance to actually go home with one of these fine pieces of art. What do you think about that?
Yeah, y'all may just walk away with one of these mugs tonight.
If we can think of something totally embarrassing and inappropriate for them to do.
Oh, I can think of a lot of things.
All right, so I'm going to put this down, and then we're just going to enthrall the audience. Do it now.
What does yours say?
Mine says abundance, health, joy, and love.
Mine says love and light.
So we'll take pictures of this, and I'm sure they're flashing up right now on everybody's screen.
Yes. What do you think, y'all? You like them?
Yeah. You think? Would y'all pay $199.95 with free shipping for each of these?
We'll have a really pretty boy come in and deliver them to you.
All righty. Well, I think that concludes our craft corner. What do you think?
Sounds good to me. It's a wrap.
All righty. So we're starting the interview section of ours today. How's everybody doing? This is James Robinson.
I'm doing great. Thank you.
Excellent. He is with the GLBT Advocacy and Youth Services. Did I do that right?
Yes, you did.
Excellent. I had to actually write it down. I was like, oh, I'm so scared.
You did great. It was perfect.
Awesome. So I'm going to hand it over to Tierra because everybody's, who is that dude? Hand that microphone over to Tierra. She's the star of the show, so I'm about to hand it over.
Hey, James. How you doing?
I'm doing great, Tierra. How are you?
I'm good. Tell us a little bit about your center, the GLBT Advocacy and Youth Services. Tell us a little bit about what your services are.
Well, we started 4.5 years ago, and we do a lot of the advocacy work that we do is for everyone in the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender and queer community. I do a lot of public speaking. I conduct workshops to educate people about the specific conditions and needs of this community. A lot of those are for professionals, social workers, nurses, nonprofit agencies. And I do a lot of activism also. I attend as many events as I can, take interns with us, take volunteers with us, march in parades, everything we can to be visible. That's the advocacy side of it. The youth services side, 4.5 years ago, we started a weekly youth support group, and we have seen over 100 teenagers come to that group. Some come 1 or 2 times. Some come and stay a whole year or longer till they age out of it. That's primarily the part of the youth services and supporting local gay straight alliances in the high schools and things like that. And just being public and sharing our stories so that these young people have local examples of people like yourself that they know they can turn to, and you do a great job with that. I've seen you do that at the center. And we also have a transgender support group. Our office now is Our Space Community Center. It's the only center in the state of Alabama. And we provide space for some other groups that meet there with us also. And the agency has evolved into the Rocket City Pride organization. This will be the 3rd year I've been involved with Rocket City Pride, and it'll be the 2nd year that I'm the director of that, and that's coming up soon, and you're going to be there with us. And that's everything in a nutshell.
Sounds good. Sounds like your services offer a lot to everyone. Now, tell me this. I have another question. Does it have to be primarily GLBTQ people, or is it open to anyone?
Everything we do is open to anyone who needs it. We do not ask the question, are you gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender, or queer? We also provide some counseling services. If someone wants to share those facts with us, they can. We share our stories with them, but it is never a condition to receive our support or our help to identify as anything other than what you want to identify as.
Another quick question. I noticed you added the Q has been added to the GLBT. What exactly and how did that come about?
The Q tends to mean questioning or queer. Questioning is those of us who are going through a process and we simply haven't come to a full understanding of who we are with our sexual orientation or our gender identity. The other way the Q is used is with queer. My generation, I'm 50 years old. People my age and older still sometimes hear the word queer and they hear it as being offensive. The younger community does not feel that way. They have embraced the term queer, and many people, regardless of what their sexual orientation is, choose to use the word queer as a very independent category for themselves. The term genderqueer is becoming really common now for gender nonconforming people. And we have about 8 teenagers in our youth group right now, and about 6 of those are identifying as genderqueer or gender nonconforming. So that's where the Q comes back into it. It's been re-embraced and turned into a positive affirmation of sort of independence for a lot of people.
Awesome. I did not know that. So, Pete, do you have anything you'd like to say?
Yeah, you were talking. I was just wondering, is it like a place where these people can stay, or is it just like a day type thing?
No, our offices are open different hours. When we have the groups, it's open, and when we have different events, it's not an overnight shelter or a space like that. It is a safe space when we're there and when we can be there, but everything is run by volunteers, and so sometimes we're open more than we're open other times, but our groups meet regularly, and we always have people there for the different groups that meet.
So can you give us kind of an idea of how many youth you serve in a certain time frame, however you quantize it?
That's really hard to tell. Right now, for the past 3 months, we've had 8 to 10 teenagers coming, usually about 8 every week. For a few months before that, it dropped down to 1 to 3. It goes up and down throughout the year. Over the past 4 years, we've kept a record, and we've seen over 100. Like I said, some of those may come in one time and they need someone to talk to. They've never spoken to another lesbian before or to a gay man. And they come in and they ask all their questions, and then they go back out to their community and they found what they needed. Other people come repeatedly over and over and over. So the youth group kind of goes in cycles throughout the year depending on what time of the year it is. Summer will probably drop off a little bit lower. Because kids are involved in a lot of other things when school's out, and then it will pick back up again in the fall.
Awesome. I know that, because I'm the same age as you. I'm 50, and I know back when we were kids, it was still in the psychological book as far as disease,
right.
And right. So I was just going to say that, I didn't have any place to turn or I didn't have any kind of good role models of knowing, because all we had was what was on TV, and that, of course, was just laughed at. So it would have been awesome to have something like that back when, because what I did was I went ahead and got married and had the kid and then got the divorce. And then it's interesting to me because Dan Savage says when you come out of the closet, you usually burst out of the closet. And that's pretty much what I did.
That's what I did too. I only came out 5 years ago. I was 45. That's when I started the agency. This was my coming out process. And I remember being terrified. I remember sitting in my first public community meeting, and everyone was going around and identifying themselves. And it was my first time out of the comfort zone of our community to do that. And when it came to me, my knees were shaking under the table. And I told who I was and who I worked for, and then from then on, I do it almost every day.
So I'm sure you probably don't need any volunteers, you don't need any money or anything like that, do you?
We always need money. Raising money for a nonprofit that does what we do in Alabama is extremely difficult. There are a number of reasons for that. One is that we're the only agency of this type in the entire state. There's not one in Tennessee. There's not one in Mississippi either, because we do a combination. We provide social services and activism and advocacy. There are some other groups that do political activism, but they're not providing social services at the same time. And we raise money constantly. We are a 501c3 public charity, so donations are tax deductible. But it's still very problematic being still relatively new and being in a part of the country where there is not a lot of funding for LGBT organizations. Many areas have their own foundations, and they fund in those communities. Alabama does not have a foundation for the LGBTQ community, and the other areas of the country tend to put their money into their own regions. So the South needs funding all across the South, not just here in Huntsville, but we need it everywhere, and we need more agencies like this to be developed. We need more social services because our people are struggling, they're hurting, they're dying, and many of them don't even know where they can go to a safe doctor, especially the transgender community. There are so many issues right now with us trying to find healthcare services for members of the transgender community. I could go on and on about that. They almost do not exist here.
So now, how do the youth find out about the center?
We go and we speak at their gay straight alliances. We have 4 of those in Huntsville right now in the high schools, and it's promoted. We have sent letters to every city, not just city, every school counselor within about a 100-mile radius, letting them know that the group is here. And we have had youth come in because their counselor went to them and said, this is a group. We have had a lot of media exposure, dozens and dozens of interviews over the past few years, newspaper articles, word of mouth, people just sharing. Several churches know we're here now. I've been to speak at some youth groups at churches. Just everything we can do. It's grassroots just to get out there. And one person tell the next person, and one person tell the next person.
That's awesome. I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad that you were out there. That's just awesome. So for people that want to help, so you're there on Facebook, and what other things besides just money is there time they can volunteer, or what can people do to help?
Well, right now we're coming up to Pride, and we have about 30 Pride volunteers, and that keeps growing. We have a pretty large database of, actually, we have had about 90 people come in and want to volunteer. That is what we are wealthy in, is people wanting to help. And what we do is we look at their skills, we look at our needs, and then we match that up. Sometimes we need more volunteers than we do other times, but anyone can contact us and give us your information and talk to us about what you want to do, and then when the need is there, we will know you're there ready to help.
That's cool. And will you talk about your contact information, your Facebook, phone number, address, however best?
On Facebook, there's a number of ways. One is the Facebook page for the agency. That is GLBT Advocacy and Youth Services. We also have Support Marriage Equality in Alabama. We have gayinalabama.com, Rocket City Pride, free2be.org, and Our Space Community Center. Those are all Facebook pages. We have about 4,000 people connected to all of these different pages. We have the email address of the office is info@glbtays.org, and the office phone number is 256-886-1150, and you can always call, and if no one answers, just leave a message and we'll get back in touch with you.
Awesome, James. Is there anything else you want to talk to us about the organization? Does that pretty much cover everything?
Well, it's really important for people like Tierra to come by, and she does that. She has been there on Sunday afternoons, and I remember one young man who walked in scared to death, and he just wandered in the door, and Tierra was there, and just her natural spirit of love and kindness had conversations with him. That young man kept coming back, and he told me one Sunday afternoon that he was so glad we had found us, because he had found us because we had been so nice and so accepting of him. And that started that day you happened to be there and had that conversation with him, because I may not be the example someone needs. My experiences may not be the experiences they're looking for. The more people that get involved, it may take a while, but you never know whose life you're going to touch. And you can do this on your own also. You can do it through Facebook, social media. I have spoken to people all over the world who needed someone simply to talk to. That's how a lot of this started. So even if you can't get out of your house, you can make yourself available to someone to listen in some way. And by doing that, we all save lives and we help people.
All right, so that is so cool. So I think now, are we going to be ready for the pet corner? Because we want to talk about James's pet.
Yes, I think the pet time would be great. James, I had asked James if he had a pet, and he said he had a parrot, and so he told me a story that I won't dare repeat. I want him to share this with y'all. So,
well, my parrot is named Renee Senegal Bourgeois, and that's an interesting name. Renee is a Senegal parrot, and I did not know whether Renee was male or female because they all look identical. So I wanted a gender-neutral name, so I chose Renee, and Senegal parrot. And at the time, I had a chiropractor who was Dr. Bourgeois, and so I thought that was just a really cool name, Renee Senegal Bourgeois. So I was living in Birmingham, and Renee was out on the deck in a cage, and I had another little parrot there also, and I went out and Renee was gone, and we were on a second floor and got out of the cage some way. 3 days later, thinking I was never going to see Renee again, I go out and I'm on my deck, and that other little parrot, I left it out there and it would scream and do its normal thing. I looked out across the parking lot, and here comes little Renee wobbling literally across the parking lot, walking back to the apartment. And his wings were clipped, so he couldn't really fly up. I do not know how he survived 3 days out in the neighborhood and found his way back home. And Renee has been with me for about 15 years. I hand-fed Renee as a baby. And so at times Renee has been very tame, and at times Renee gets very nippy, and I've got scars on me. Every morning when I leave, recently, he has started saying, bye, Renee, because every morning I would walk out the door and he would scream until I would tell him goodbye, literally. And then when I would say goodbye, he was okay. And now he started mimicking that. So I'll walk out the door, it's bye, Renee. In the morning, he tells me good morning, cute little things like that. So I love birds that way, and I love parrots. And he's a great little addition to my family, so.
well, that sounds good. I don't have a pet, so I don't have any interesting stories about my pets, but I do love pets, though. So, Pete, what do you want? You have a pet?
I have a couple of pets, and it's going to be really interesting to see which ones I'm able to get a picture of, because we're going to put James's picture, I'm sure you've already seen on here, because one of them does not like to be taken a photo of, the little Chihuahua. His name is Roscoe. And then I have a cat that, so this is what I want to know from the audience, because everybody keeps telling me that Bob is of the larger persuasion. I think he's perfect. Now, the interesting thing about Bob is it's spelled with a little B, a little O, and a big B at the very end. It's just the way he wants it, so I don't know. And I was going to say to you, James, that Tierra and I do know why Renee came back, and that was because of love. Do you agree, Tierra?
Thank you.
Yes, that's the only reason Renee came back.
3 days later, and this cute little parrot wobbling, because when parrots walk, they kind of go side to side, walking across the parking lot on his way back. I could not believe it.
So how hungry and thirsty was he?
I don't even remember that. I was just so happy to get him back. Because, he's like a baby. When you have hand-fed, an animal like that, because that's the way you tame parrots. You finish hand feeding them, tube feeding them 3-4 times a day for weeks at a time, and you bond with them. So he's just really special. Senegal parrots are unique in that they will hang upside down like bats. And so he does that a lot. And he was very excited to get his picture took. This morning I went out to take those pictures, and he was fascinated. And I say he because I think I figured out he is a male after 15 years. Never laid any eggs either. So he loved having his picture taken. So
Does he leave the toilet seat up? Is that how you figured it out?
No, but I do see him doing some interesting things with his water bowl.
I understand. We don't have to go any further. That's as campy as we need to get on this show, right? So how does a parrot show love?
If I were to spend more time with him, he would want me to hold him. You could hold him upside down and scratch his belly, scratch under his wings. Over the years, I haven't spent enough time, but he still wants you to scratch his head. And he'll come over to the cage, get your attention, and stick his head up there wanting you to scratch his head on behind his neck. One time, one of my nieces was about 2 years old, and parrots can get nippy. But I remember the little child walked over and stuck her finger in the cage, and Renee could have bitten the finger off. Parrots have very strong beaks. Renee took that little finger in his mouth and moved it out of the way and pushed it outside of the cage. Now, I've got scars, like I said, where it gets mad and bites me sometimes, but they're very intelligent. They have the intelligence of about a 3 or 4 year old child, and you can see it in their actions, and they're just amazing.
That's so awesome. So another question I would have is, like, how often do they regrow their feathers? Like, do they lose them? Or?
They don't lose them all at one time. They molt at a certain time of the year. It's usually about twice a year, I think, for Renee. I don't notice as much as I did when he was younger, but they get kind of nappy looking, and they preen themselves. They pull out the old feathers, new feathers grow out, but it doesn't all happen at one time. But there is a season that they go through in the year when they do that.
Now, so you said nappy. Do they do like this right here?
No, he does scratch his head, but nappy just being old feathers with new feathers, and you can tell the new ones because they're called pin feathers, and they come out and they have a little sheath on them, and they have to pull that off. That's one reason he likes you to scratch his head a lot at certain times, because you're helping scratch those things off, and then the feathers open up. So now you've got a lot of 101 about parrots, which you probably didn't know. They also have very sensitive tongues, and they use their tongues to feel. And so you talked about affection. He will come over, and if he will touch you with the tip of his tongue, and it has a lot of sensors on it, and he uses that the way we would use our fingers. And he'll come over in the morning and stick his claw out and grab my finger when I'm feeding him. They're just really fascinating creatures.
I imagine he's probably intuitive with you by now. He knows what kind of mood you're in, or if you're not feeling well, or...
He has over the years. This parrot has been with me through a lot for about 15 years, through good times, through about 10 years of substance abuse, and this bird was always with me, moving from one place to another. I'm surprised that this bird is alive with all that's probably inhaled over the years. It actually survived a fire one time. The fire chief came out and told me that there was no way this bird was going to be alive in the apartment because it had caught fire. And then they got into the back bedroom and opened the door, and there they were. They were fine. So this bird has made it through a lot, and they can live. This size bird probably about 30 years. The larger the parrot, the longer they can live. The big macaws can live over 100 years. So they often have to be inherited by someone. So I know I've got probably at least 15 more years, whichever one of us lives the longest with Renee. So.
Well, that's awesome. That's really awesome. You have any other questions, Tierra?
I'm good. I've learned a lot about parrots, and I really thank you because I didn't know any of that. So it's very informative. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on your program. This has been fun. I wish you great success. And anything I can do to help, let me know.
Thank you, James. We surely appreciate you being first guest. How about it for our first guest? We can't keep these people back. They're just crazy. Alrighty, so I think that's going to conclude our show for the day. Tierra, it has been wonderful.
Thank you, Pete. It's been an awesome experience. Thank you.
And so keep tuned for our next show. Where our intention is to do this every week. We'll see how that works out, whether the angels and everything conspire with us on that.
Sounds good. Remember to be kind to one another.
I love that. That's why I want to do this show with you. Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.